Hi there, Medical Wildcats. I'm Joseph Guggenheim. I'm a 1972 alum of the medical school, and this month I'll be speaking about four women who made a big difference, not only at our medical school, but in Chicago and even all over the world. It's very fitting that we discuss these amazing women now because March is Women's History Month. The first of these four remarkable women is Elizabeth Cobb Ward. She was the widow of Montgomery Ward, the mail order catalog and department store mogul. She was a philanthropist and a trustee of the university. She gave an initial gift of $3 million to the medical school and gave a total of $8 million. She was surprised to learn that the medical school was not co-ed at the time, but her gift was not contingent upon admitting women. This picture shows her giving a check to university president Walter Dill Scott. The groundbreaking for the Ward building was on May 8, 1925, so we're approaching the centennial now. She died, however, before she could see the interior of the building. She was returning from a trip to California to her home in Chicago in June one year, July, and Chicago was having and the whole Western United States was having a bad heat wave. The railroad cars were on air conditioned at the time. Her driver picked her up and was going to take her to see the Ward building because she had never seen the interior of it. They drove from the train station to the Ward building and it was locked. So her plan was to come back the next day. Unfortunately, she passed away during the night, so she never did see the interior of the Ward building. Our second remarkable lady is Clara Abbott, the widow of Wallace Calvin Abbott, who started the Abbott Drug Company. She was a philanthropist and also the first female board director of a major U.S. company. She was born in Pomfret, Vermont, this beautiful little village in Vermont. She married her childhood sweetheart, Dr. Wallace Calvin Abbott, in 1886, and they moved to a two-bedroom apartment in Ravenswood, in the north part of Chicago. At that time, doctors not only practiced medicine out of their office, but they also manufactured medicines, and that's how Dr. Abbott got started. 5 years later, they moved to this house on North Hermitage in the Ravenswood area in 1891. The house sold recently for $1.7 million. Ms. Abbott died in 1924. Dr. Abbott died in 1921. Ms. Abbott donated 12,000 shares of Abbott stock to establish a foundation for the benefit of her employees' families. And this foundation is still in operation. It gives scholarships, disaster relief, and financial assistance. The foundation was to be used, according to the mission statement, in furtherance of my beloved husband's profession and work. Their daughter, Eleanor Abbott, was a graduate of Northwestern in 1922. The Abbott Foundation gave $1.5 million for the purpose of advancing medical, chemical, and surgical sciences. The University of Trustees at the time decided to use the money to build a dormitory and use the profits from the dormitory's operations for the purpose intended in the will. They donated $1.8 million posthumously for the construction of Abbott Hall, which when it was built was the tallest dormitory in the world. That $1.8 million is about $39 million in today's dollars. Abbott Hall was designed by architect James Gamble Rogers, who designed several of the Gothic buildings on the Evanston campus, including the Deering Library and the old Dyke Stadium, and the Gothic buildings on the Chicago campus, including the Ward building. Construction for Abbott Hall began in 1938. The building was formally opened in October 1940. This picture on the right was given to me by Northwestern, and it says it was a student room in 1940. I doubt that this is accurate, however, because when the building opened, it was immediately taken over by the U.S. Navy for the training of midshipmen, and it did not open for civilian students until 1945, after the war was over. Ms. Abbott was the first female board director of a major U.S. company, Abbott Laboratories. She was also the first female board director of a Fortune 250 company. She served from 1900 to 1908 and again from 1911 to 1924 on the board of Abbott Laboratories. Our third remarkable lady is Margaret Morton, who was a philanthropist and a nurse. She was the nurse who cared for Mr. Joy Morton's first wife, Carrie. Mr. Morton's name was Joy. It was a family name. Margaret cared for Carrie during the 17 years she was ill. Carrie Morton died in 1915, and then Joy married Margaret in 1917. When Margaret died in 1940, she left more than $2 million to what is now Northwestern Memorial Hospital and more than $100,000 for the continuing care of the Morton Arboretum in DuPage County, Lisle, Illinois. She donated $1.8 million to build the Morton Building in memory of her late husband. The original plan was to build a neurosurgical hospital. The hospital was to be built just east of the old Passavant Hospital, which is now, this property is now the Simpson Quarry building. This was going to be on the south side of East Superior Street, just east of the old Passavant Hospital. But restrictions on building during World War II and runaway building costs after the war forced them to build a research building instead of a hospital. And the building is now on the north side, not the south side of Superior, where it was originally intended. Her will also provided for $100,000 for the care and continuation of the Morton Arboretum in DuPage County. And this is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Morton at the Arboretum. Our fourth remarkable lady is Anne Lurie, who was an amazing philanthropist. She began her career as a critical care nurse at the old Children's Memorial Hospital on Fullerton, and she was a lifetime trustee of the university board. She grew up in Florida, raised by a single mother. Her mother told her to do a good deed daily, and she said this is the philosophy she tried to live by. She was a graduate of the University of Florida. She moved to Chicago in 1973 as a critical care nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital on Fullerton. Her husband, Robert Bob Lurie, was an engineering graduate from the University of Michigan. He was an investor with real estate investor Sam Zell. Mr. Lurie was a part owner of the Bulls and the White Sox. It was said he had a brilliant mind, quick wit, warm spirit, and was a genius with numbers. Mr. and Ms. Lurie met in the elevator at the Sandberg Village apartment when they were single and on their way to do their laundry. They noticed in the elevator that both of them had keychains for British cars, his an MG, hers a Triumph. He asked her to help him sort his laundry. She thought maybe he was just trying to find out if she was a helpful person. She had come out of a very bad marriage to a wealthy man and swore that she would never get involved with a rich man again. She said with his, as she described it, alternative look with his bandana and his kinky red Bozo the Clown hair, her words, not mine, he did not look wealthy. They married in 1977. In 1988, Mr. Lurie, at the age of 46, was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. She started learning about his complex business dealings and had to buy a copy of Accounting for Dummies. He passed away 2.5 years later. And this is a bust of him at our Feinberg campus. 4 days after he was buried, one of the Lurie children became very sick with salmonella after eating a contaminated piece of chicken. The child was saved by the physicians at Children's Memorial Hospital. After he recovered, the board discussed a donation to the hospital from the Lurie family. She held off giving anything until they agreed to build a hospital downtown in the medical center area instead of rebuilding the facility on Fullerton. The hospital was named the Anne and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital, and it opened in 2012. At that year, she was named the Chicago Magazine one of 5 Chicagoans of the Year. Mr. Lurie left an estate somewhere between $450 and $500 million, and it has gone to build a comprehensive cancer center and the Medical Research Building on our campus. In Michigan, a engineering center was built at the University of Michigan in honor of Mr. Lurie. They also donated one of the gardens at Millennium Park, Greater Chicago Food Depository, and the Spay and Neuter Clinic. She donated all over the world. She helped build some schools in Ethiopia. She was on a safari in Africa one time when she saw some sick Ethiopian children and Kenyan children and said something had to be done about this. So she started a healthcare facility, which started off as a single trailer and has now grown to a 24 building complex. When the trailer was not clean to her standards, she spent 3 hours cleaning it herself. The Luries were never one to shy away from work that many wealthy people might consider menial. Mr. Lurie mowed his own grass, and the 6 Lurie children were taught to make their own beds every day. She received many honors during her lifetime. She was the recipient of the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Award for Humanitarian Contributions to the Health of Mankind. She was a life member of our Board of Trustees, president and treasurer of the Anne and Robert H. Lurie Foundation. She said she wanted to give away all her money during her lifetime, and all her 6 children have their own charitable foundations. In 2014, she married film editor Mark Muhine in 11-degree weather in front of this fishing shack in Jacksonville, Wyoming. She has a residence in the Chicago area and also in Wyoming, and split her time between the two. They were married in 11-degree weather in front of this shack with their golden doodle Sophie as a witness. She said she is a self-described hippie at heart. She passed away last year, 2024. She said that I refer to some philanthropic concerns as hovering in a helicopter, throwing out money. But philanthropy doesn't mean just giving away money. In the dictionary, it means loving your fellow man. People can be philanthropists even if they never hit their checkbooks. It's about the passion you feel towards those who are living in deprived circumstances. I have never seen a picture of Ms. Lurie where she was not smiling. She was obviously someone who really enjoyed what she was doing. The university and the world lost a great philanthropist with her passing. I'd like to thank Katie Littell at the Galter Library for furnishing many of the materials to me for this talk. Let's get together next month, May 3rd and 4th, for Alumni Weekend. You can reconnect with many of your fellow alums and hear some lectures from Northwestern's outstanding faculty, some of them for CME hours, and get some tours of the Medical Center campus and surrounding areas. So I look forward to seeing everyone at Alumni Weekend, I hope.